This week's episode is brought to you by our generous patron, Unsocial Penguin, also known as Chris. And thank you so much for doing that. Without further ado, here's this week's episode.
That's the sound of the police. Boop, boop. That's the sound of the beast.
Welcome to episode... I don't know what episode it is. Fuck. But anyways, welcome to it, you know. And this is Vice of Life, and I'm Logan. Joining me is Josh, going whoop whoop.
Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the police.
And joining us in person, because today's topic is important,
Yeah.
is Eloy.
I'm back, baby.
It's worth the risk. Is it worth the risk, Eloy, of the COVID?
A lot of this stuff is worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of what we'll talk about.
Mm.
Okay.
I'm happy you're here. But actually, I realized this because as I'm mixing the episodes and posting them, we had before COVID we started the whole like plugs thing at the end.
Yeah.
And whenever it goes from like Eloy saying bye and his really crisp distorted voice.
Oh, right.
And then it goes to you being really clear. I'm like, we can't, you know. I could notice the difference, and it was bugging me.
So I believe it.
That's why I asked, but I wanted to make sure you were comfortable. Are you comfortable? Is this a safe space?
Yeah, I believe so.
All
I think
right.
we're good.
Cool.
I heard that's the right way to do it, is that ask them if it is, versus just saying it's a... Anyway, we're being... I don't know how comfortable I am with being this PC, to be honest. I know it's necessary. It's... Anyway.
Yeah. Well, here we are, and this is Vice of Life. I've said that, but every week we sit down to talk about a varying topic. It is usually tangentially or directly relating to life. I'm gonna start getting a robot voice to say that word. But as is the case with every podcast you're probably listening to right now, we're going to be talking about the protests. And I think it's important to do so, regardless of how you feel about it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. That's going to be the topic of today's episode. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. We're all kind of unsure about where it'll go, but that's why you're here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're here to
It
explore.
needs to be discussed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we get into that, I guess we can talk about what we did this week. And Josh, go ahead and start us off.
All right.
Tangentially.
By the way.
There you go. So, I was jobless for a minute there. It was very uncomfortable in a way. It was kind of nice in a way. But I just started driving for like a third-party company for Amazon, doing delivery. And, sometimes you're drinking a lot of fluids while you're driving. And
Oh, no. I already know where this is going.
And so you got to choose wisely with that, So the thing that I have been enjoying this past week is the wide mouth Gatorade bottles, because
Wow.
sometimes you got to get in the back of the van and get a refill going,
Notice how he says the wide. He wanted to make sure you understood.
Well, it's just what?
Flex.
You ever try to piss in like a water bottle just with that little, just doesn't work, man. It's not
Yep.
the same. It's dangerous.
I've never tried big rim or the little rim.
It's the worst.
The little one's bad. I tried doing it while driving like years ago.
See, that just seems like a bad
Disaster.
time
Yeah,
altogether,
it was.
regardless of the mouth that's taking
Yeah,
it.
the mouth.
The mouth of the bottle, of course.
Naturally.
Well, when I did that, it was in traffic. Like the freeway was all backed up, and I was like, I can do this, but it just doesn't matter. Like, it's dangerous. So you got to get one. Actually, the first time I did it was in my like bullet blender bottle. That's a wide mouth, man. You know what I'm talking about? The thing.
Okay,
you
maybe
put
we
on.
should have thrown bottle in there in the first place. You bullet blendered and then you paused.
Oh, no, yeah, no. Just the plastic cup thing. But I started overflowing and kind of spilled in the back a little, and then I tossed it out the door, and then I got a lot of pee, So the Gatorade was
how many
just
ounces,
right.
huh?
Oh God,
What's this bottle?
what are those? 12 ounces? I could probably fill 2 of those, honestly.
In one go?
It depends, but
Wow.
I got probably some kidney issues, so
As long as you're aware.
keep a bottle on hand,
Keep a bottle on hand. That's a good slogan.
Yeah, man.
Keep a bottle on hand.
I don't know. I had
Wide mouth only, please.
Yeah, wide mouth. It's got to be. It's just easier. That's all I'm saying, But I hope there's not some kind of hidden camera in there. I looked around quite a bit to make sure.
In the truck?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Well.
we'll see.
I think you're probably okay.
I like
Yeah.
to
You'll probably
imagine
just have
they,
GPS.
they don't make the camera so obvious. They got like audio in there though.
They might.
And I
Sure.
imagine just at one point. Yeah.
And just yeah. No, I don't know. The thing is too is you got to be strategic about where you dump that shit too, because you can't just do it in someone's front lawn. Like you got to find a place to empty the receptacle.
Mm.
So I found like a nice field and.
You empty it. I thought
Well,
you just
yeah.
threw the whole thing away.
No, I reuse it, man. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Is there a good rinse in between at
Yeah.
least? Like with a hose preferably?
I mean, for the blender
Industrial
thing,
soap?
yeah. But the bottle now. I mean, look, I threw it away at the end of the day. I'm not just bringing it with me. But
Okay,
I've
okay.
considered it. I might start doing that.
Oh, see, you just use it for pee exclusively.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the disconnect. I thought you were like, using this as a multi-purpose.
Oh,
like
no,
a,
no.
Like a
Well, the
like
blender
a-
thing, yeah, that cup.
yeah.
I'm not going to do it again. That's maybe. I don't know.
Wow, that's gnarly.
Desperate times, man.
I mean, we've
I
all
guess
been
that's
there.
white privilege for you. My big thing is pissing in a bottle right
Hey,
now.
man. I'm sure there's a lot of protesters
That's
doing
another
that.
flex. Okay, we get
I
it.
guess.
Okay?
I don't know. I'm not
Wide
trying.
Mouth, my big thing's pissing in the bottle.
I'm
I don't
not
know, Josh.
trying, man. I don't know.
Cool it.
Look, I'm working for the most rich man in America right now. That's not a good thing. That man, he's a corrupt man. Jeff Bezos.
Fair.
I'm not happy about that. I used
Well.
to work for a small business, man. I was given to the community.
And before that, you were working for the United States Postal Service.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're respected now, so it's okay.
Are they doing better? I don't know really what's going on with that.
I don't either. And that's what brings me to this week's
Yeah.
edition of what I did this week.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening after our last episode about bad money. Well, the last couple of episodes, I guess. It was Being Successful, that episode. It was a few weeks ago. And then the money and bad investments and stuff. And we've been talking about how the United States Postal Service is going down, or so they say. So then I heard on a podcast that, because you always hear about coding being really good, right? It's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I heard on a podcast that there's these things called coding boot camps that you can go to for like a 6-month period or whatever. And it'll basically teach you all the coding that you need. And everything online says you usually get a job within 1 to 6 months of getting that certificate.
Wow.
So I'm decided I'm going to do coding boot camp.
Nice.
It's really hardcore. I don't know why I call it boot camp. Anything with boot camp, I'm just like, but it's not the boot camp.
Anything with training?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll be doing that. It is like $11,000, almost $12,000.
Wow.
So that's kind of scary. Before we recorded this podcast, I finalized my loan from Sally Mae. And,
Wow.
I always hate making these kinds of multi-year commitments to paying debts off. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm both excited and very nervous about having another monthly bill for the next few years, and I don't know, learning a new skill that's marketable. I don't know if coding is necessarily like my dream job, but it's a marketable skill,
Yeah.
and I think it can translate well to other things, and so
I'd
here
say.
I am doing it.
Nice,
Yeah.
man. Have you
It's
done
like a
any?
good step. If it's not the dream, it's a good step.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too that you could probably do remotely, even just regardless of everything. So you could kind of maybe somewhat make your own schedule and do your own stuff as well. Like, I don't really know. I know people sort of tangentially that do it that have like a motorcycle and all this shit, and they seem like they have their life pretty put together. So
Yeah.
could be good. Like,
I don't know. They say you need to have like a specialty or whatever, and I don't know. Cybersecurity has always interested me, so
yeah, there you go.
maybe I'll go into that. But
That's pretty cool.
Real quick, I was wondering why you were referring to having a motorcycle as like a limit of like a barrier of success, but then I remember it all came flooding
Well,
back to me.
It's also just like, it's one of those things that won't like consume your life, like this career where every day you're like, how am I going to improve on this? And,
yeah,
so it's just like a steady thing that you can take wherever you want pretty much, but it's
Yeah.
not like, I don't know, a business loan for $300,000 and like, oh God, I got to
yeah.
hire people. And, it's just like
That's kind of why I
It's a
did
good
it, is
thing.
because I was like, this will be my attempt at further education to
yeah,
see where it goes.
that's cool.
Because I'm not gonna spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a computer science degree
Yeah,
in the
that's
same field,
Yeah.
and then be shit out of luck. So I'll just do this intensive 6-month thing and see where it goes, and who
Nice.
knows?
I believe
I-
my
I-
uncle works in coding, and like there are like 6 companies fighting over him right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's just that good.
maybe
My
Yeah,
biggest
man.
fear is that I'm
He
going to be
could
doing
be.
this, and then everybody else in the class is going to be like, I got a job, like, offer right out of, graduation. And then I'm going to be like, oh, well, I'm still out there.
Sending lots of applications,
Playing the field right now. In
I don't
between some companies right now.
But I still don't even know exactly, like, because what I'm doing is full stack web development. So I don't know what that translates to other than websites and, like, servers and shit and, like, databases and shit. I don't know what that transfers beyond. I don't know if, like, that kind of stuff could be used in, like, app development. I mean, I'm sure there's
Probably.
some thing, but, there's probably differences. And I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next year.
Yeah,
Because it'll be a 2021 thing. Maybe 2021 will shape up to be better than 2020 has, at least for me.
yeah,
So,
I think so. Is
We'll
that? I heard you on the phone the other day. Is that who it was? Like,
yeah, it's
yeah. I was wondering. I'm like, is he doing more school? Like, I didn't know what it was. So
yeah.
that's cool.
This guy he's kind of weird. Like, he's got like a southern accent, and he's really kind of socially awkward. But he like owns the company through which the University of Utah like does it. So it's like a program with a company that's sponsored by the U.
Okay,
And
certified.
yeah, he's telling me all these things, and he's like waiting for me to respond to him just giving me information. And so I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. And then he'll just wait a
Yeah.
couple more seconds, and I'm like, okay. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, you're telling me how the course works, great. And so maybe he's like reading off a sheet and pausing to read. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it was just
Could be.
it's always awkward to talk to him on the phone,
Yeah,
and I kind of dread it.
That's how I feel in a lot of interviews. Like, you have any questions? And just like,
it's like
no,
yeah,
I don't know.
when I start the job, I will.
Should
I guess. But, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. And then he's one of those people that like goes into detail about like if you do ask a question, he'll be like, okay, well this is this and this is the like, and he gives too much information as the answer.
Yeah.
But and then again, you're at that point where you're like, okay, yeah, okay, and I don't know, but he seems like a nice guy, but I don't know. That's what I've been doing. So
Nice.
What about you, Eloy?
Excuse me.
He's dying.
I'm dying. It was a bad idea for me to come here. I went camping last weekend.
How was it?
It was a lot of fun. Went with my family, Shelby, and a couple of my uncles. What the fuck was it?
I'm so sorry.
What the
I'm
heck?
cleaning my desk. I took a screenshot earlier for that class, and then I was deleting it, and I didn't know if it was
Oh.
gonna make noise. I'm so sorry.
Hitting
Fine,
the trash
Logan. I
bin.
don't have to tell you about it.
I'm
If You're
listening.
gonna go through and
It was
organize
two,
your desk.
It was a 2-click. It was a 2-click thing. Okay.
Where did you go?
To Little Sahara sand dunes.
Oh, okay. That's what you're. Okay.
Yeah.
So you took your new vehicle.
Took
over?
my little Honda Pilot out there. It did really well.
Nice.
Not a difficult drive, but my old little low car never would have never would have done so well.
Hmm?
The
Yeah.
fuck was I gonna say?
Is this in like central Utah-ish?
Yeah, where is that?
Yeah, I'd say it's more central Utah. It's there's a lot of weird towns. There's Eureka right by it. There's
Is it by like closer to like Zion's, or is it closer to like Coral Reef? I think that's what it's called. Coral Reef National Park.
I don't know
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Never been.
Okay. Fuck if I
Being
know.
honest, I don't know. It's
Is it a far
about
drive?
2 hours
2
drive.
hours?
Oh,
Okay.
that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Shelby had an accident in a side by side like years ago, and so she was scared to like be on a 4-wheeler or a side by side.
Hmm.
So we decided to put her on the back of my dad for most of the trip because he was the most experienced. And we went out to like the actual dunes, and there's these things called bowls where it's just like this big like sloped wall of sand, and you go and you ride the side of them.
Oh, nice.
First thing, they fucking ate it, and he felt so bad.
Oh god.
And they're both beat to shit, but
Yeah.
they're fine. They're bruised to hell.
Did she conquer her fear, or is she still kind of like, I'm never doing that again?
She didn't do anything after that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fair.
I don't know if she will in the future, but yeah, she was kind of out of commission after that one.
I mean, she's 0 for 2 right now. basically,
Yeah.
it sounds like. So
It's not going so well for her, so we'll see. She writes it
but
all.
you know what they say, 3's the charm.
Yeah.
I think that's the saying.
Three's the charm, third
Yeah,
time's the charm.
Third time.
3rd time's the charm. That's
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, that's what I did.
right. All right.
That sounds fun.
Did you wipe out?
I did not. Nope.
Was it just her, like just that one time with, like, of anyone bailing, basically?
On this trip, yeah, her and my dad both
God
ate
damn
it,
it.
but my dad rolled with the 4-wheeler. It kind of bucked Shelby off,
Oh, okay.
which isn't too bad because you're landing on the sand, but it's still not fun.
That's pretty bad for him, especially, but both, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
your dad's an old man. So.
yeah.
Apparently, right after he rolled it, he just kind of laid there on his back in the sand, and he was like, "Oh fuck," just feeling bad that he knocked Shelby off. He didn't give a shit
Yeah.
about his situation.
Yeah, damn
Yeah.
it.
We've all been there before, I think. In similar situations where you kind of fucked up
Yeah,
and you just kind of lay there and you're like, damn.
it's embarrassing. Like
Yeah.
it made me recall one of the times years ago where I ate it out there. I went off just like this big hill and kind of smacked down on the ground, and the bike bounced me off.
And now you have
And-
no children.
No, I
Yep.
have no children. Probably. But my shoelace also wrapped around the handlebar somehow,
Oh, God.
and it dragged me a good few feet. And it wasn't even so painful. I just kind of laid there, shoelace still wrapped around the handlebar, doing that exact same thing. Like, oh, God damn it.
So
Wow.
it was just the one leg in the air?
Yes.
So, okay. I just wanted to see if it was like, he had both legs in the air, but I wanted a good visual of it. No.
No, it was my left fell off the bike on the right. My left shoelace got caught. It was just dragging me on my right shoulder
Oh,
for
wow.
5 feet or so.
Could have been 10.
Could have been 10. Could have been 10.
I've never gotten to, like, operate a four-wheeler. Like, I've ridden on them, but I want to actually, like, drive it,
It's a lot of fun.
It seems way fun.
Maybe when things lighten up a bit more, we can all go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ever been to the sand dunes when I was riding them? As with Josh, I've never actually, like, piloted one.
Yeah.
I only went around, like, the neighborhood of my brother-in-law's old house with it. And I was really young, and he did all the driving, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had neighbors that did it in their backyard, and then, like, years later, I was good friends with this guy, Josh, and they had one, and I just rode on the back while he drove, like, through, not really canyon, just, like, field type stuff out in Tooele, but that's it, man. Like,
Yeah.
pulled my shirt up, let my belly shake around, you know.
You'd be one of
But,
those
yeah.
sunroof people.
Oh,
Someone
yeah.
lifts the sunroof, you're like, ooh, flashing cars as you go
I
by.
would.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'll get plastic surgery so I can do that more, like implants,
Just
in my
for
chest.
that reason.
Yeah, just to flash people. Yeah.
I respect that. You
Well,
know what you want, and you're gonna go for it.
I've recently become aware of I guess you could say a sex toy called tit cups.
Oh yeah.
And basically what they do is you put them on your breast,
Right.
and they somehow suction to your breast and then
Oh.
pull all the fat into like a breast. And so that's an option too if you don't want the permanence.
That's
It's kind of like a henna tattoo versus an actual tattoo, but for breast.
Huh.
So
So what do you mean though? Like it sucks the fat forward?
yeah,
To, like,
all
fill it
of
out?
the fat in your chest, it just like sucks it up into the cup, and then you leave it there for a while, and then you
Wow.
take the cup off, and it basically stays a breast for a while.
I feel like
Wow.
I'd be more estranged by you
That's
having
wild.
fucking tits for 2 weeks than having them.
I know, and then they're just gone.
It's not for 2 weeks.
That's true.
for 2 days, a couple hours even. I don't know.
But
Have you guys ever seen we probably did forever ago at like Blue Boutique and shit, the like mold a willy or whatever. You can make a
Yeah.
dildo out of your own.
Mm.
I kind of want to do that and just make a bunch of candles. Like just take the mold and then fill it with wax. And...
Do you like the wick at the top or the balls? At the tip of the balls?
Oh, that's a good question. I was thinking the top, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Mm.
Hmm. You could even like
Have like 3 wicks, like going into the.
yeah.
You know?
You could have it be a hard exterior and then have all the wax drip out the bottom, like
Mm.
There
There you go.
I don't know. We'll see.
You let me know.
Look, I think I was
this year's
talking
gonna be
about
one hell of a Christmas.
yeah, the handmade fleshlights and just I don't know, man. I'm gonna get pretty wild with it once I got money coming in.
Oh yeah, dude.
That's gonna
Everyone's
be my thing.
significant others, I know what they're receiving.
Yeah,
It's a personal gift, personalized gift.
exactly. No, I don't know though, because I like the idea. I feel like it'd have to be for a girlfriend or something. Because outside of that, it's like, what are you trying to say, man? What are you trying to do here? Like it would be too personal to be like, well, this is it right here. Like that's kind of.
It's a lot of penis
Yeah,
overconfidence. with
No,
this
it's-
guy here, you know?
That's why I don't know if I want to do it. Because I'm like, anyway.
Well, one of our friends seems to think you have a big hog. So
Well,
Wow.
that's coming from a guy with an acorn. So.
Oh,
Anything's big to him.
wow.
I don't know how I'm supposed to react to that shit. No matter what I say, it's like not a good answer, So it's
well,
fine.
It's an answer. It's just
it's
whether or
fine.
not it's open to
It's stock.
comedic prodding. I don't know.
Yeah, it's stock. There's no modifications. There's no nothing. It's
Yeah.
just run of the mill.
Comes off the conveyor
Toyota.
belt.
Yeah,
It's the Toyota.
it's just the family vehicle. No bells or whistles. Just there it is.
You get what you get.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now is the truck a big hog, or is like a Porsche a big hog?
Hmm.
And which is the little?
Yeah, see, that's the thing, exactly. Like, if you have the big truck, but it's always breaking down or whatever, that's not any good, even if you can put a lot of people in there. If it can only drive for a few miles, then what's the point?
Or maybe
Might
maybe
as
a
well have a
truck.
coupe.
Maybe a truck is like big balls,
Yeah.
but then the Porsche is like a long dick.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how are we gonna segue?
Yeah.
Let's get into this.
we were debating this whole time. Should we
Yeah.
open the show with something funny like usual?
Yeah.
And we still did.
Well, there's your funny
Just
bit.
kind of went there, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So last week, this is how we'll get into it. Last week, I was listening back to last week's episode, and apparently I'm Nostradamus because I was saying
Yeah.
a lot of things that came true in some way. We were talking about Eloy. You have a rally car that you can use
Yeah.
for whatever political thing you feel like is necessary.
Mm.
It's true.
And I was saying how there's gonna be like a revolution of people against capitalism.
Yeah,
You
well,
know-
before that, you were talking about that book about, like, epidemics and pandemics and shit. So
Yeah.
what's going on over
I don't
here?
know, man.
What do you got for us today?
I just found that I was listening back on that episode. I was like, oh wow, that was a little like too. I don't know if it's like in poor taste now that I made those jokes, because at the time it was fine when we
I think,
recorded
right.
it.
Anyone that has half a mind would realize
Yeah, but
there was no context.
But anyways, so anyone who listened to last week's episode could tell that it was recorded before all the protests happened. And we kind of talked about whether or not to talk about this week's episode last week or this week. And I think we all kind of decided on waiting a little bit, because last week things were a little wild.
It was very fresh.
And I feel like now is a okay time to talk about it, where things seem to have not died down per se, but the things that were up in the air are now kind of rested, and we kind of see where the new political landscape is and where it might head.
Yeah.
So, but without that, I don't know. When did this exactly start? It was Memorial Day is when George Floyd was killed. So
There was
that
like
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, about that actually. By the time,
Yeah.
especially by the time this comes out,
Oh wow! It seems like forever ago, and it was
It really does.
really not that long.
was
ago.
it 2 weeks ago Friday that the first protest was, or was it? No, it was on a Saturday.
That's what I don't know, because things were
Or
happening.
the first like. A lot of places tried to organize protests the very same day, which I believe was not last Saturday, but the Saturday before. So,
Were you
Yeah.
guys aware of that at all? Like it being organized and everything?
I saw
I
other
wasn't.
places were doing it, but I wasn't aware of anything happening here in Salt Lake until
Yeah.
like 2 hours before it was even going to start.
Yeah.
I didn't know until I
didn't
saw
either.
on Twitter there was a lot of like news people that were talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, that's happening, cool."
Hmm.
And then it just kind of quickly became a lot
Yeah.
everywhere. Everywhere became a lot, and I don't know how to exactly talk about it. I guess we can talk about Salt Lake specifically, because that's what that's where we live.
Yeah. Then there's a few tidbits I know from other states that I could touch on later, but yeah, might as
Yeah.
well hit close to home.
So yeah, that Saturday was wild, man. There was a lot of protesting. There was tagging. There was chants. There was marches. There was tear gas. There was rubber bullets. It was heinous.
Car explosions and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like people mobbing that guy with the bow and arrow. Like, did you
Yeah.
see that whole thing? Like he got out of his car and he was like pointing it around, and then literally like dozens of people are just
Beating
punching the
the
shit
hell
out
out
of
of
him.
him.
Fuck you! And they flipped his car and lit it up as
Yeah.
well. Like,
And
I'm not. I mean, I'm more on their side than his side. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just wild.
yeah.
Fun fact, I don't know if you guys have been trying to keep up with that, but that guy just still just hanging out at his house at the
Really?
moment.
I heard he was
That's-
arrested.
Yeah.
I don't know. They did an
haven't heard.
interview with him in his house. I don't know
Well, see,
when
that's-
you're referring to this. It was like 2 or 3 days after he was just at home
Yeah.
in his fucking undies.
Well, that was
just-
poor taste, I think, on the
Wow.
the news. The news's thing. We got shaken around here, but anyways, I think I was on the news part. The news gave him way too much of a voice.
Mm.
I've also heard
Yeah.
that he has diminished capacity in some way, but I'm not positive on that.
Yeah.
Not to excuse his behavior, because that was
Right.
sickening.
Yeah. It's like waving around a shotgun or something when you think about what
Yeah.
it could have done, like if he just let that go at someone. You know
I mean,
what
a bow. I
I
mean,
mean, I
an
know it's
arrow
different, but
can
it's
do
aggressive.
a lot of damage, as
Yeah.
can a bullet. But
Yeah.
an arrow is like, it on the way in. It's not just a little thing that like. I mean, I guess a bullet can like ricochet around. I'm not a fucking ballista. What is
yeah, I'm
that?
not either.
Ballistics.
Yeah, ballistics expert. But to me, it just seems like wow. An arrow is like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But so that guy came out. That kind of made national news. So
Mm.
anyone who's not even listening in Utah might have seen that.
Yeah. Which I like. It's a big deal that he was whipping the bow and arrow out and everything, and he was gonna shoot it. But in like the media, especially, this is getting more head for a while there. It was getting more press than even the protests themselves. It
Right,
felt
like the purpose of the protest. Yeah,
Well, this
That's
is the
what's
whole
interesting.
thing with the protests. I feel like is
yeah,
it became a lot about the looting and the quote unquote violence, and I just it's that this is the whole thing about this whole event that's like transpired over the last 2 weeks. Is I feel like the narrative in a lot of ways was lost, and I feel like now
Yeah.
it's kind of coming back into the forefront, and
yeah,
that's what I'm happy about. Like I was really fucking pissed off about all the protests and stuff for the first little while because I was like, this is you're missing the point here.
yeah,
Like when I see skateboarders in Salt Lake smashing police cars, I'm like, I get that you're not happy with the police, but you'll excuse me if I think that it's not because you give a damn about black lives, but it's because they told you not to skate on the property.
right. It's like a venue to unleash your anger, which is pretty misguided. Like it defeats the main idea. Yeah.
Yeah, like I saw videos being posted around everywhere. People just at the protest, just skating around, and then even on the news, you could see people just like standing in front of marching officers and everything in front of the burning cars, just like taking selfies and
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Uh, this is one of the people, like one of the people I kind of know she was talking about it, and she was saying how, once the police car got flipped over, I just kind of wanted to see what was going on, so I headed downtown. And I'm like, damn it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck off. That's like, you go away. We don't need you there. You're making things worse. And I fucking, that is exactly why I was so mad, is because it felt like so much of it was like just wanting to be a part of something, or like
yeah.
saying a lot of condemnation. And this is what I was saying. I don't know about you guys, I don't know about the rest of the world, but literally every single day since the protests in Salt Lake specifically, I've thought about this in some capacity, and I've thought about like, okay, how do I think about race? How do I think about the police?
Yeah.
What can I do to be better? And I've thought about it, maybe not, 20 hours a day, but I've thought about it for a good amount of time every single day. And I feel like a lot of people just immediately were like on social media, and they were like this is one of the things that pisses me off the most is the signs and the people that are like, why is ending racism controversial? And I'm like, it's not controversial. It's really not.
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
And I'm getting so flustered right now because I don't know what's up and what's down as far as the people who actually mean what they say online. And it's a lot of online shit, and I just need to get off of it. But
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
been trying to just stay off of mostly Facebook, Instagram too, and I don't know about Twitter. I wouldn't even want to touch Twitter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a fucking cesspool.
it's just like a lot of condemnation, and I just wish people would take the time to reflect and maybe not post like, hey, fuck racism on like every tweet of the day, And it's like, you're right, like fuck racism, but how are you spending that time otherwise? Like,
Yeah.
you're missing the point again of like, think about yourself, think about what you've been doing, and then think about how you can project that outward, what you've learned about yourself, and teach your friends. Don't just be like on Twitter shouting out into the void again of being like, hey, fuck racism, and then everybody's like, retweet, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is, it's selfish is what it ultimately comes down to. And it's not about you or your social media. And I don't know. I have so many thoughts that I want to get out, and I feel like I've been talking too much, so I don't know. Do you guys have anything to say at this point?
Just briefly. I mean, I see your point. Like, I think it's more about calling out people that you're around doing things that are outdated or just very unproductive and even harmful, and yeah, monitoring your own self and going, what do I do that I was even doing ironically that at this point is just needs to go, like it's not even like funny to do stuff in like a cheeky way or whatever. It's like, how am I contributing to that overall narrative? And I don't know. I can see people's points when they say things go too far by being like too sensitive or whatever, but I don't know. I've kind of come to a point with so many things now where I think that the extremes are necessary because they shift the center. So even if you think the extreme is too much, like it's still good because it moves everyone on that spectrum one direction. And in a way, you have to be grateful for it. And in a way, like all of the violent aspects of everything were necessary in a sense to actually get talked about. I mean, I don't know. It was weird though. Like sorry, now I'm just ranting. But
No, that's
on that
I feel like
day-
you're safe to not worry about that after my
yeah.
10-minute speech.
Well, like on that day I was doing like Instacart deliveries and I hadn't really been looking at anything online. Like I knew what was going on, but I was also just chugging along, I guess, in my day. And I ended up at a grocery store near downtown, and as I'm like waiting to pull in, the streets just block up, like everyone's backed up in this big line, and a bunch of like SUVs, all black SUVs, pull up, and a bunch of cops get out and start putting on riot gear and everything. And I'm like, what the? Like, I had no idea. Literally, it was just like another day to me. And I see all that going on, and I go into the Smiths to do, because I'd already like accepted the order, so I just had to go do it. And I'm walking around in there, and at this point, it's early evening. I don't know, like 5 or 6 or something. And I knew they were going to be open for a while, like till 9 or 10, and they do this announcement, and they're like, because of the events going on outside, we're closing the store. Everyone get your items to the front. If you don't check out within the next 10 minutes, you just got to leave your items. And everyone's kind of looking around like, aren't they open for a while? Like, what are they talking about? And so I do what I can, and everyone's like rushing and panicking, and they keep doing the message over the thing. And I'm starting to get messages in like a group chat that I'm in, and it's like pictures of the police car flipped and like all these things. And I'm just like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like, I had no idea it was being organized or anything. Like, it was just totally out of nowhere. And, and I'm not saying that's like a bad thing, but it was just really unreal, surreal. And so I did what I could to get the certain items, and I start like refunding all the shit. And then they're like, can you still deliver? And I'm like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And of course, one is like in the heart of downtown,
Oh, Jesus.
like in an apartment complex.
Oh, yeah.
So I attempt to kind of drive over there to see if I can somehow like go around their like set up perimeter, and no, it was like right in the middle of that shit. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta cancel this. Just gotta go home. I start getting the alerts for like curfews and everything, and god damn, like, so I saw some of that, and then I drove right past all of it kind of going on. Like, I couldn't really see a lot, but I saw the crowds and the signs and everything, and wow, man, I mean, I don't know, like, I can sometimes have kind of like a doomer mindset. Like, I started kind of having like this pit in my stomach and just going like, oh, it's beginning, man. Like, this is, I don't know. It's the downfall. Like, you know what I mean? And
I mean, anybody who hasn't felt that way in the past 6 months, I feel like it's
Yeah.
just kind of,
yeah,
not living in the real world. But
right.
sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I was just slowly getting info from other people, and then kind of started, my mom's texting me, are you okay? Like, there's blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm watching the news, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was good because when I first heard about what was going on, it was like, oh, it's over George Floyd's death. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, I didn't know what it was at all at first. I just saw the cops with the riot gear, and that's what freaked me out, because I'm like, what is this all about? Because I had this whole other thing in my mind of like the police state, man, which that's where I get torn on this stuff. And we kind of talked about it the day of, where it's like, I don't know, I just hope it all will balance out, and it seems like it is, but then you hear what Trump is saying about like involving the actual military, and that's where I get freaked out, because it's when that stuff goes too far, they end up justifying the other side to hit them twice as hard, and they have the actual law on their side, and that's what really freaks me out. But it's like numbers matter, so like if enough people are doing it, they can't stop everyone. Like it's kind of that idea. So it has to hit this breaking point where either people back off or it just fully like consumes. But what does that look like? I don't know.
And this is my thing on the violence thing, and I do think it is important to reiterate that, you know, the violence and all the looting and that stuff was not organized.
Yeah, and that's
That
not
was-
the
yeah.
majority.
That was an
either, like-
offshoot, and I feel
Yeah.
like, you know, and a lot of people who aren't paying really close attention to this might just conflate it all into one thing.
yeah.
You got to understand that, you know, in a crowd, things get real, like, messy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different people there. And so none of these, you can say it was Antifa, you could say it was white supremacists or whatever that were, you know, doing all that stuff. But in the end, it doesn't matter because that's a different issue entirely from what the main issue is here. But beyond that, that is what I worry about with the protests is, like, I was getting kind of annoyed when people were, like, making comparisons to, like, the Boston Tea Party and stuff, because it's, like, not all, what I heard one person say is, like, not all protests and injustices are made equal. And it's, like, fighting against violent behavior with violence, though I understand the pain associated with it, is not a remedy to, like, like you're saying, it's, the police have always had this thing that apparently is called the blue wall or something, where, you know, every day they're seeing the darkest parts of society. And whether or not we can talk about why they, you know, why they see the darkest parts of society, if they started it, if there's a reason for it, all this other
Right.
stuff.
It's a big cycle. Like, but yeah, that's interesting.
But
It warps their perception of humanity
Yeah.
because they only see. Yeah. Okay.
and so what violent protests do specifically, and again, this is a different issue, I guess, from the main issue of Black Lives Matter and, you know,
Yeah.
police brutality, but the people that use that as an opportunity to loot and all the violence and stuff, I feel like just made things so much worse, because the police already hate the regular population, and I feel like that's just making things so much worse, and it's going to make it so much harder. And I'm actually kind of glad that I see a lot of police chiefs now. I think Minneapolis said, the police chief there said that he's not going to work with the police union anymore. Here in Salt Lake, our police chief is like, he's aware, he's been listening. They banned chokeholds and the use of tear gas.
That's good.
So I'm happy that those kind of people are at least listening in some regard.
Yeah, and
But-
it's kind of a product of that extreme behavior because they go, "Oh God, if we want this to stay under control, we gotta listen to them." You know, like
But those are the people that are in power that are listening to it. The rank and file members of the police department are the ones
Right.
I worry about, because those are the ones that you're protesting. And I mean, I don't have a better alternative to what is going on. I mean, what are you going to do other than protest? I don't know. So, but my heart aches because I just see the inherent issue in protesting something that's always going to be us versus them,
yeah,
if that makes sense. And especially when, like you're saying, the them has all the firepower on their side, and they already hate us, and it's fueling the tides of war, so to speak. And
yeah.
I really wish that weren't the case, but it like you were talking about, like a doomsday vision.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of where I'm at, is it's like, I don't see how any solution is going to be a good solution in
Well,
this
something-
case.
Something that I heard that, and we really need to let Eloy talk.
No, I'm
But
taking
some-
it all in.
Sorry.
That's how a lot of this has been going. Like when I talk with other people about it, I like to gather information, like other opinions.
Okay, yeah. Well, I heard on a podcast that someone was saying like you need far more qualifying hours to become a cosmetologist or a barber or just like a basic career path job than you do to be an officer of the law. Like, and I guess this is one of those. It's so funny how shit will flip back around onto, like Trump would talk about proper vetting for immigrants and stuff, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, guess what? We need proper vetting with everything.
See, like, yeah,
And we
that's
need regulation. Like,
the big thought I have with this. I'm like, there has to be a better way where we could like comb through the selection process of who gets to be an officer and everything. But then
yeah,
I don't know, when you're in a position of such like power, such authority over like the general population, I don't know, there's always that saying like absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like you could
Yep.
go in with the best of intentions and end up being the cop that killed George Floyd. I don't know.
yeah.
Yep.
Have you heard of the Stanford prison experiment? Do you know about that at all?
Heard of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because it's like a random, from what I remember, maybe you guys know it differently, but they took like a group of randomly selected people, like volunteers or whatever, and started them all off as equals, and then they gave some positions of power and some, like, it was kind of like, okay, you're a prison guard, you're a prisoner, and it was like this closed space to kind of see what would happen. And yeah, every time the people in power would abuse that power, and then they could flip around the roles and everything, and then now that person is on the prisoner end of it, and then the other person is. So it's like, how much of that is the ego or the id or whatever, and how much of that is that loop? Like when they're in that position, and then the cards get flipped around, they go, okay, well now's my turn to get justice back, and it just keeps feeding itself, and I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't think about the protests in themselves in kind of that same manner. Like, you're still like the general population, but when you're gathered in such large numbers, you have that anonymity, that like
right.
like sense of authority. Like it's 100 to 1, really. You do what
Yeah.
you want, but that's the issue. And then in line with doing what you want, like I feel I'm a little more in line with, I'm walking a line when I say the violent acts.
Yeah.
Not violence per se, but like I didn't take any issue with the police car being overturned, with the fire, anything like that. But when you look back on them, how many of those things were instigated by a person of color? There's not
Yeah.
many, especially here in Salt Lake.
That's
There may have been
what I've
one or
been-
two in the fold, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I watched a news thing, like, I can't remember who it was. It was like local Fox News or something. It was on YouTube. I was just looking shit up and it came up. But they find like one of the few like black guys in the crowd, and they're like, come here, come tell us what you think. And he's just like a guy. He doesn't like
Yeah.
represent everyone. He's just like, yeah, it's pretty crazy out here. Like,
Yeah.
there's a purpose behind it and it's important, but it's not like he was like the front of the pack. He's just a guy. Like, so it is interesting. Like,
And then I saw a video from some other state during one of the protests where it was just all these white people just busting in windows of all these shops and everything. And then there's one woman of color that's just a megaphone, and she's just yelling at all of them to stop, and it's like, this isn't the way and everything.
well, because she will still face the impact of that, and those guys won't. They
Exactly.
can do all that damage, and then it's still going to get turned around on her culture, her people, like whatever. And yeah, that's a really interesting point. That is very
That's exactly
Weird.
like the same vibe I was trying to get back to with the people that are saying, like, that are online. It's a lot of
Yeah.
condemnation, and I'm like, but just take a step back, one step back. I'm not asking you to take 10 step back, remain silent or
right.
anything, but I'm just take one step back and see how your actions are going to reflect back on the narrow-mindedness of a police officer in a minority neighborhood.
Yeah.
Just take one step back and just think, what am I going to do that's going to impact this other person? That's all I want.
Yeah,
This
like
whole thing.
Yeah.
Just think.
everyone has the right to be angry and upset and sad about all of this,
Yeah.
but we don't have the right to be as angry, upset, sad as black people in this scenario. Like, so if they're not the ones perpetrating these, like doing these things, why do you feel like it's okay to?
Yeah.
Because like that,
Let them take the fall.
that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a protest for black rights, black equalization, really.
Yeah.
So how hard is it to come to mind that you're just being detrimental to that?
Well, and they would say this is how we become part of the solution by being like allies and everything.
Yeah.
And
The thing
Yeah,
is,
but
I
that's-
feel like these protests need to be like black led, in my opinion. Everybody's
agree.
just it's like Logan said, like these weren't organized. Like that one, the first one here in Salt Lake, people just showed up. You could tell there's no structure. There were people in groups of friends, but
it was like rave kids with restless energy. Like I
Exactly.
drove past and they're all wearing like tube tops with big signs, and it's like, this is like a gimmick for you, man. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's like
isn't. Yeah,
people falling in line, wanting to be on the news, wanting to take pictures of them there to show they care about the cause, quote unquote, and then just get clout. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's like posturing. I don't know. I mean, it's not to say they shouldn't do it either, though. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's like there's a lot
I
of
don't
thin
know.
lines to walk with this. Because I mean, I couldn't stand the people that were there. Obviously, not for the cause, but the more people that showed up, like at least visually, shows that there's
That it matters. Like,
there's a mass that gathers around this.
yeah,
But I don't know how you weed that out.
You don't. And this is people need to weed it out. Like this is again, this is you have to differentiate between the crowds of people. It's not this crowd of people, of protesters, is not just one big thing that's just has one idea. There's several different ideas, there's several different actors.
yeah,
And I hate that people are trying to make excuses for like looting and shit. I'm like, I'm sorry, but there is no excuse for that.
I agree.
There isn't, and that's okay, because guess what? The looters are not actually a part of the cause. They're just
Right.
fucking heathens.
they're being opportunists. They have nothing to do with
Right.
the message.
And so
Yeah.
just strike them out of your mind. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that later.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but everybody wants to paint with it's us versus them. It's
Yeah.
either you're fucking for the police or you're against the police. And it's like, hey man, I don't like what the police are doing. I really fucking don't.
Yeah.
I'm on the side of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
But hey, there were problems with the protests.
Yeah.
And I can say that, and I can be right about it. And I'm sorry if you disagree with me, but I'm sorry. There's just a natural way. And this sounds very condescending, I suppose. But I'm like, where's your normal sense that things are complicated? This is a complicated issue.
yeah,
A crowd is never just one idea,
Right.
ever. So please, people, just when you're thinking about this, just think about it critically. That's all I want. Stop painting with broad brushes, because this is not the time to be painting with broad brushes.
yeah.
God. Like, cut everything with a scalpel now. It's important to do so. I was listening to a talk with somebody. I need to look up his name real quick, but he was talking about, he's a professor, I think, somewhere. I'll get his information, but he was basically saying how, like, to us, racist is a pejorative, and it is, right? Nobody likes being racist, but I think people have lost he was saying he thinks that it's important to realize that a policy is racist, you know.
Yeah,
When somebody does something, they're doing something racist, right? And so what needs to happen is you need to look at all of the ways you're thinking, all the policies, all of the factors that go into this issue, and look at it individually, one by one by one, is this a racist policy? Is this a racist idea?
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, you're racist, and that's it. It's again, now it's just you got to be super specific with this issue, because even the slightest thing you overlook could end up having terrible consequences. So
Yeah.
just please, everybody, just think critically and hard, and that's all. Again, I'm saying, but I'm gonna get that guy's information. So
Yeah.
speak amongst yourself.
Okay. I keep saying this to everybody I speak to about this. That I don't think I could bring myself to be a all cops are bad, fuck all cops guy.
Me either.
But I don't know that I'm going to come to their defense, really.
Nope.
But I mean, like, we shouldn't have to defend them at all. That's not me
Yeah.
saying, like, I wouldn't want to, but I can't. I just can't bring myself. I don't know. The way I'm phrasing this sounds contradictory, but
No, I see what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
you don't. This issue that we're having right now, we shouldn't have to be like, hey, but there's cops that aren't racist. You know, we don't want to be saying that because that's not the issue.
Right.
But then the people in the crowd are making it out to be the issue when they're spray painting ACAB on shit.
Yeah, and it just strengthens the opposite base because they say, well, fuck, I don't believe that, so I'm just going to double down on what I think and defend it because clearly it's under attack. And it's like, God, you guys are mucking up the works, man. That's what I get that, where you say ACAB and things. It's like, I don't know, though, because, again, it's like, is that extreme portion useful because it brings up awareness and then allows you to break it down? Like, you start at that base level, so even when you come down on it, it's still, like, higher up than it was.
I, mean, I like what you're saying there because, yeah,
You know what I mean?
I have a friend who works with cops all the time. She works in, like, a loss prevention somewhere. I don't know. So she works with cops all the time. She's always following up in court cases and everything. So I was much more on the other side when I had a discussion with her, but it's just so beneficial to take in other accounts and not just be ignorant to the other side.
Yeah.
Like, you can still listen and be adamant on your position.
Yeah. You got to understand where someone's coming from to combat what their issues are. Like, if somebody has an issue with the stance that you're taking, if you're not arguing the points that they have issues with, then you're just going to run circles around them. You've got to combat what matters to them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, specifically. Again, you gotta have a scalpel when you're talking about this kind of shit. It is so important. And by the way, the guy I was talking about is Ibram X. Kendi. He's the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. And he was talking with on the podcast Radio West, and so I recommend anybody listen to that. But Ibram X. Kendi, I thought his insight was quite important to me, so I recommend listening to that episode of Radio West with Ibram X. Kendi. But
Okay. I forgot to resubscribe to that when I changed my Spotify. So anyway, I'm going to do that right now.
That's something I'm particularly enjoying. Maybe I just I ignorantly didn't pay as much attention to, like, protests that have happened in the past, but I didn't see it much to my knowledge until this resurgence. Is like the whole saying, it's not enough to be not racist. You gotta be anti-racist, like Josh was saying earlier. Like, a lot of this is even just in your day-to-day life outside of this, calling that shit out.
yeah,
Because a lot of people are jumping in on this because it's what's trending right now. And are you gonna act next June, everything back to normal? Someone says some shit like that. Someone says some racist shit. Are you going to say anything, or are you just going to feel uncomfortable?
Right.
So I know I've done that in the past. I just kind of turn my head, cringe a bit. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and like I said earlier, I used to be pretty antagonistic with this stuff, which is, like, I get what you're saying, Logan, about, like, hit them on their opinions and try to reform them, basically. But I used to do it a little bit just antagonistically. Like, I got in this whole argument with my dad's coworker's wife when we went camping that we randomly hung out with for a bit, and she was like a big Trumper and everything, and we somehow started talking about like universal basic income and blah blah blah, and she was talking about just sucking off the system and everything. So I said, well, what about homeless veterans? Don't you care about that? Like, I tried to hit her where I thought she might be coming from, but I see how that's kind of unproductive in a way, because I don't know, like, you gotta I don't know, but I mean, what can their message be? Like, some cops are bastards. Like, there's value in raising the stakes like that. So,
and that's fine. You can
weird.
have an extreme position. That's totally fine. But again, my issue comes from it when you're like you're spray painting the side of a building with it, because I'm like, you're not helping anybody by doing this. You can go to the protest, you can shout it all you want, whatever. But I don't know. Coupling an extremist idea with violence is not a good idea in any way. All right? Just full stop. I'm sorry. But whenever you have something that is considered extreme, and then you're like, I'm going to do something quote-unquote violent with it, spray painting a building, punching somebody in the face with it.
Yeah.
You're kind of not helping the point. You're just, you're bringing attention to it, I suppose, yes. But what attention do you want to bring to it? You're bringing antagonistic attention to it. You're not bringing open ears and eyes to it.
Right. Well, this is like when we first hung out with your friend at his house. I don't know if he listened or not, but he was saying some kind of ignorant stuff, and I know it was like half ironic and everything, and that's what I've had to check myself on as well. Because the way I would do it would be to point out, like, isn't this ridiculous? But you can see how people interpret it not that way. And I think he was just doing it to be provocative, I guess. And so I threw it back and, like, called him white trash. And at the time, I felt pretty justified by that, because it was like, well, now you understand how it hurts, like. But I don't know if that was useful or not. Like, I don't know if that actually made him reflect or not. Like, maybe not. Like, I'm not really sure. So it's like, I don't know how I should have gone about that, I guess. Like,
I mean, I guess everybody's different.
There might be somebody
that you call them white trash and they're like, wow, I'm offended. Let me think about why that offends me.
Yeah.
But I think a vast majority of people, you say, why don't you have a problem with saying the N-word to your white friend? Your white friend's saying it, you say, why don't you have a problem with it? And they say, well, it's in a rap song. And I say, okay, but do you understand that rap song is not your song?
Right.
And you're not a part of that community. What they're speaking about, you've never experienced.
Right.
I think most people are more responsive to that kind of thing than being called white trash. So I don't know, man. Everybody is different. But
I mean, it's like, the way I see this, it's like one thing to take a surface level jab where it's like, yeah, you're white trash, but then when you like
I still regret
Sorry,
it.
it's the example.
It hurts me a little bit. Yeah, but I think it's a useful way to.
And then if you go like in the situation Logan's saying, like, you're attacking their character at that point, and that's what's really going to hit home,
right,
one way or the other.
Yeah. Which I tried to do as well, but that's the thing that still sticks out in my mind of like, that was pretty cheap, but maybe, I don't know. I've tried to do that though. Like, I had this other friend that, it was weird. I watched him like slowly turn into a racist, and it started out with like not that subtle stuff, but at the time it was subtle because it was 2013 or whatever, so it wasn't. I mean, I know this stuff should have always been talked about, but to be honest, it's kind of come in waves. Like, so some big event will happen, and then everyone's talking about it, and then with time, it'll stop being talked about on a mass scale. And I think that's what people are so frustrated by now, is it's like, well, how do we make this a lasting conversation? But it is like, I've tried to have those more honest dialogues with people that I didn't agree with, and I don't know, it's very, very hard to convince them otherwise, because they feel like they've done the research and this is true to them, and they, like,
Exactly. And
They're not even always doing it to be an asshole. Like they genuinely believe these things that are very like scary, I guess.
That speaks to an issue just about society as a whole, is that nobody is willing to listen, I suppose. And
Yeah.
so maybe there is more of an argument for extremist views, is that, people are going to be researching like ACAB out of furiousness rather than, out of just be like, well, I wonder what this is about. And they'll be like, what the fuck? Fuck these guys. And they want to talk about it on Reddit or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all very nebulous right now. And again, I don't know.
I'm dancing around it because I really don't know how to talk about it. But like, a lot of the time, people that are genuinely racist, they believe that it's like backed by science. Like they have this whole like mindset about like superiority, like the hierarchy of race and stuff. And it gets real fucking creepy, man, when you see what people like believe. Like it's not even just through their own like personal experience. Like they think they've found the truth, and it's like, I don't know how you talk to someone like that.
I mean, that's like an extremist belief in that own department, because there are people who will justify saying the N-word by like, oh yeah, my black friend is like, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And they'll like try and rationalize this in their own head. Or they'll be like, oh, I'm not racist because this. And then there's that where you're just reaching so far that to say you're not racist because you can't acknowledge it.
Yeah, you're like, no, this is just fact. And it's like, no, it's not. You were just justifying this bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a whole other thing, though, where they have like permission to say things. And it's like, I don't think you realize that that one friend just didn't want to rock the boat and just wanted to feel like everyone else. So they just tried to like brush it off. And we've done that shit, with you, even to your own expense, like joking around about things. But it's not on the same level, obviously. But it's like even those little things, like, do they need to be said? Maybe not. Like, I don't know how much of it. That's what I mean about myself is like, how do I draw? There's like playful stuff, like you said, mariachi mustache, and it's like, yeah, I like that shit. It's just cool. It's fun. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Eloy posted on his Instagram about a mariachi mustache.
Yeah, I got some mariachi facial hair going.
For those not aware.
Yeah. And it's just, there's no, that's
Thank you
just,
for clarifying.
Yeah.
It sounds like I was
Thank
making
you.
a racist joke.
I just see somebody listening and like, when did he say mariachi?
Yeah, true. Sorry. Yeah.
You're good.
So I don't know. It's, because it's like, here's the way I try to do things is I try to like get into that head and see like, what are they, and I mean on all sides, like, how do you, because you could say, oh, well, that was, like, you could say it, but if I said it now, it's a microaggression and I'm not meaning it to be, I don't know. It gets really weird. And so that's where people go, well, fuck this. I'm exhausted by that. I'm just going to say whatever I want,
I hated when microaggression became
But it is a thing. Like,
it is.
Absolutely. So it's how do you, I guess that's the big thing is more people should be monitoring themselves and doing their best to have those conversations with people they know. And the way that happens is by being aware of large events that actually make you reflect,
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, like if we had continued to see more cop cars being flipped and more defacing of the Capitol and more, where it was becoming like anarchy, I would start to think, well, this is why we have a fucking police force, because you people can't control yourselves. But that's not how it went down necessarily. It was this massive thing that has kind of settled down and unfolded into still being relevant but not destructive. So in a way it's like maybe they needed to get that out of their system, and the people that were just there to be, honestly, I guess, kind of, I was going to say obnoxious, but just opportunistic. Like maybe those people won't show up the next time, or they will and they'll be a little more calm. Like, I don't really know. I hope that's just like a big flowering of it, and then it just stays there as a flower, and you go, oh wow, okay, let's break this down more with time. Like,
Yeah. I don't get
I don't know though.
I'm sure there was a lot of aggression out, and I guess people get that out differently, but
Yeah, exactly.
I just, you, again, it's so complicated, and
Where do you guys, sorry, do you guys feel that COVID in and of itself and the quarantine and everything played a part in the aggression that's happened at these protests, even from the smallest to like even the worst of it? Like, I mean, I get that a lot of this definitely hit a boiling point and it's fucking bubbling over, and this is stuff like this was going to happen either way. But how do you guys feel like it did in any way? Just being locked up in the house for months on end, and then shit like this happens, and that's like taking the opportunity.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I was trying to say is with the aggressions that people are having. I'm sure there's a lot of aggressions going out there, but it's a lot of it wasn't for Black Lives Matter, and that's why you have to differentiate between the people that are looting, the people that are out there protesting, and the people that are out there, you know, spray painting ACAB and out there flipping cars. It's you got to look at every group as a conglomerate of separate groups down to the individual. You've got to try to understand as best you can the individual in a group, and while that might never be easy, I think it's pretty obvious that, you know, people had frustrations and COVID exacerbated them, and whether all those aggravations are righteous and well-founded is a point to be debated, I suppose. But to answer your question, I definitely do think that being cooped up had an effect on it, and I mean, that's just the way the fucking the universe, you know, decided to make it go down. Is that you know,
it's so crazy. So. I just had this thought. It's not about that necessarily, but I was just thinking about like the opportunistic people and the people that showed up in Salt Lake City, kind of more specifically. But there's a difference between like a skater kid that got busted for having weed on him and he was bitter about that, and it's like, oh man, I got busted, like that cop's an asshole, so they're all assholes, like, versus just being a guy walking around and being stopped and profiled and all that. And that's kind of the difference, you know, like those people that are being aggressive are using this as a way to get that out for them feeling cheated, and that's why I think that's the frustration with it that we're feeling, where it's like, where they're missing the point because they have their own personal gripes about police, but they're not necessarily genuinely on the side of the people that are just systematically oppressed. Like,
there's a lot of issues here, and I mean, but not every issue is the same, and you can't lop it all together.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
and I mean, as far as like skateboarding kids go, I mean, me and Eloy, we were skateboarding at a church, and you know, some cop comes up. I think we've told this story of how he's like, just sit there on that curb with your hands out, and it's like, you know, it's not a big deal for us. Yeah, it's a waste of an hour for some dumb teenagers. It's not a big deal.
But you know, you'll be able to go back home or call your parents or whatever.
Right, and so, you know, would we have been justified in smashing that cop's window out at a protest? No. He wasted an hour of our time. Big whoop. What were we gonna do with it anyways? Yeah. You know, but you know, if you're George Floyd and you're getting killed over a $20 bill,
right?
I mean, that's something to get pissed about.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So, you know, just because you feel like you got your time wasted by the police doesn't mean
different.
that you're warranted in taking whatever action you feel is appropriate for your frustration. So,
See,
I mean, with COVID, maybe these skater kids are going out. They're skateboarding at the parks. They're not social distancing. There's a skate park by our house.
yeah, it's full.
It's
all the
fucking
time.
packed. Nobody's
Yeah.
nobody's
Yeah.
social distancing. Nobody's wearing a mask. So maybe the cops are like, "Hey, you guys got to get the fuck out of here," and they're pissed about it because they want to
Yeah.
skateboard. Hey, man, that's not the same as getting killed.
Right,
Just because of your
exactly.
color of your skin.
Yeah.
So hey, dude, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not fair for us either, though, to assume that, like, maybe they do genuinely believe it. And I don't know. Like, it's, again, we're kind of generalizing in the same way that,
That's.
you know.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't know, but it's kind of hard in my head to just. I don't know. I feel like that is the case. Maybe it's just me being cynical of that side, but I feel like that's the case with a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, like the I guess the antagonistic side of me or the ironic side of me or whatever would say, well, I looked like a skater, so that was profiling. Like they assumed that I was up to no good, you know. But again, it's still on such a small level compared to just literally
yeah.
being who you are. Like you're not. But there's so much. I mean, you look back on so much like media and everything. Like even in, I know it's. So this is where I can see people going, "Oh, you're being way too PC." So this is why I'm so like confused by shit. But even in like Rick and Morty, there's like the black teacher, and he's always like yelling and being eccentric and blah blah blah, and everyone else is, you know, it's like all these weird subtle little things that just get sprinkled in of like, oh well, they're just irrational and crazy, and there's like the thug narrative, you know, like I don't know, there's just all this weird little shit where it's like putting people in boxes, and then what does that box contain? And if that's just like this thing that has changed a lot over the past, 5-10 years, but a lot of people still run on that program. Like I was just barely in Tooele hanging out with some friends and listening to his mom talk, and even though she's on the side of Black Lives Matter, she still can't help but say all these weird little things. Like she was even saying the blacks and like just certain things where it's like it's sinking in to her head, but there's still all this little stuff where it's not fully there. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's
every
a
conversation,
process.
every person that you talk to is going to be different.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of adjust. I mean, his mom you might not need to be as combative with her and say, "Hey,
No.
why are you saying this?"
Yeah.
You know, you don't necessarily. You can just kind of be like, maybe rephrase that. You could just say something as simple as that, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll catch her on.
Exactly.
But then the person that you're talking about, where they believe that the science is that whites are superior,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
don't agree with
I
that.
don't know how you go. None of us agree with it. We think it's total bullshit.
Yeah, it is total bullshit.
But
you
how do
gotta you gotta see that that's a perspective. Like,
and you got to
How
have
do
a
you deal with
different
that?
approach to talking about that
yeah,
than you do with that mom, so to
Yeah.
speak.
exactly.
And
The small town red, county mom that
Yeah.
is surrounded by this culture, even though she's trying to change. It's like what's going to come out of her mouth when she's around a different friend that is more on the more racist end of it, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And that's just a lot of people don't know right now, and that's okay. And so just take the time to think and process and listen and understand. And I mean, none of this is going to be fixed overnight. Any of the racist beliefs or tendencies that you have in your own life are not going to go away overnight. And I don't believe you if you say you don't have them. I'm sorry, I just
Right.
don't.
I used to make that mistake too. I got in this big fight with this kid that I barely knew. Maybe I talked about this. He like punched out the hotel window and all that. I think I talked about this at some point. I was on like a road trip to Colorado, and this guy was like, "Oh, we're gonna pick up my friend," and he got all drunk, and I don't know. It became this whole thing. But we were hanging out with him before everything got wild at like this pool hall thing. And I don't remember how it happened, but I was like, "Oh, I don't see color." And at the time, I actually thought that was like the good thing to say, but it wasn't. And I didn't know. Like I was so out of the loop, because I wasn't around any like people of color, and so I just didn't really. I wasn't. So it's like that's why it is important for these big things to come up and become part of the consciousness, because it does make you reflect. Like,
I mean, something smaller on that level, I think, is the black square thing. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't participate in it because I think those kind of movements are dumb, but that's just my own personal thing about just social media. But beyond that,
Yeah.
People that were doing it, for a good cause, and then people saying, hey, if you're going to do it, don't put the hashtag Black Lives Matter in it because it fucks, people wanting. And I actually thought it was great that people were listening and saying, oh shit, let me take that down, let me edit this or whatever. I thought that was wonderful. That's a sign of at least some progress of people listening, taking the time to listen and
adapting,
acknowledge that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's all I want from people, is just to acknowledge your mistakes. And I know it's not easy. God, do I know it's not easy, but that's all that needs to happen at this moment.
Yeah.
You need to stay engaged. You need to know who you're voting for. You need to stand up for what you believe in, but above all else, you just need to listen.
Yeah.
That's all that's the main thing right now. That's all you need to do.
Right.
And that's not
all you need to do, but
it's all you need to do. It's not the only thing you should do.
that's a better way to say
Right.
it, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And there you go. That's what I have to say about that. I don't know. I there's still so much I could say. I want to talk about defund the police, but
Redistribute.
there you go. Restructure.
Well, I keep thinking about this, like you were saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me thinks, well, God, we shouldn't have to fucking do this in the first place. This is why those people are in those positions, because they make the decisions that are difficult, and every man doesn't have to do that. But when you're at that point, you try to benefit it for yourself, and you don't take the best interest of the people at heart. And so we do need to find a way to put pressure on them and make them consider their role a lot more than they already are. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hear people talk about like social training or whatever. I'm trying to think of how they're putting it, or just like empathy training, I guess, for police and everything. And when you start digging into all that, that's the exact opposite of defunding. Like, it's actually pouring more into it.
Well,
but you would want to assume they have the best intentions. Like, if you just start giving them more money, just fix it all, they're not. It's the same with the tax cut for a corporation or whatever. Like, you're assuming they'll do the right thing.
And I was on that same side. And then I was reading articles, and I mean, the defund the police thing really got me fucking heated for a while, because I was like, that's such a fucking stupid idea, and you got to stop saying that shit.
Yeah.
And I still feel like defund is the wrong word, and you can complain
Right.
that I'm using semantics over a time that semantics don't matter, but I'm going to argue that semantics matter everything in this moment.
Well, they do if you want to bridge the gap.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, everybody points to Camden, New Jersey, and basically all they've done is restructure the police department. But anyways, people are saying defund the police, and then what they actually mean, I see a lot of this. A lot of articles are like, what does defund the police mean? And then they're like, what it actually means is.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if it actually means something, let's actually make it mean that.
Make that the message.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But beyond that, what they're saying is, all right, cut the funding, put that money, the massive amounts of money you put into the police department, take away the military grade stuff. Great. Fantastic. Let's do that. Take away some of that budget, put it into social services. And so when the best example I heard was, if there's a homeless problem, somebody calls about like a homeless man or whatever, you don't need the police to go deal with that. You can have a social worker come and deal with that problem.
Yeah.
What that's going to do is that's going to free up police time to do more important things like homicide work, right?
Right.
And so that kind of restructuring of the police, quote unquote defunding the police, is good. I'm all for that. Take away the money of, whatever you've budgeted for, like, quote unquote homeless calls, and put that towards social service work. Have those people go out instead. That's good. Okay, let's defund that portion of the police, all right?
Yeah.
But just all of it, like the police abolitionists, I'm sorry. It's just, it's not practical. And again, maybe the extremist point again is it brings attention to it and it adjusts
Pushes
the
the
middle.
center.
I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, it's
You
a
know
lot
what
of
we
I don't
need?
know. But I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna keep listening. Now, when I hear defund the police, I'm not like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of like, okay. I'm listening.
Fund bicycle
Okay.
police with no guns that just go around and settle the small shit. you
Yeah,
know?
people were talking about Camden, New Jersey, because they technically got rid of their police department. But really what's going on is that they shifted to community policing. And so there's like a ton of more officials on the streets. Like no matter where you go, you see a quote-unquote cop car. But it's not the same cops as it was before. And they're just there to say, hey, we're here for you if you need anything.
Yeah, protect and
it's-
serve. That's how it.
Yeah, it's a lot of, you just got to restructure, you got to rebuild that trust. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And just saying, we don't need police. We can just farm out all of their duties to somewhere else. And it's like, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess you can.
Well, and when you say
But-
like do the right thing, quit your job, like who's gonna do that? The bad guy or the guy with a
Are
conscience?
people saying that?
Yeah, about police.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you just meant like protesters. Like people
Oh,
are like,
no,
do
no,
the
no.
right thing, quit your job, come protest with us. That's
To-
what I thought you meant.
to cops, like
Yeah, okay.
because it's a entirely corrupt system and you're part of the problem, and it's like
Yeah.
the right people that you want to go will not follow that messaging. Like it's just, yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah,
You should
the
not
people
assume-
you want to quit are not going to quit. The people that
Yeah.
you maybe don't want to quit in the police force are going to follow that example. And so,
And then you justify your own statement, and then, yeah, it's just not good. Because if all the bastards stick around and everyone else quits, then good for you. You made your point, but now what? Like,
yeah.
so I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe are we being too harsh? Like, I don't know. I feel like you might have. Like you're posting about it more online and things, I'm noticing. So I'm just curious what you think about it more, Eloy. Like, 'cause maybe we're being too.
We're taking the voice away from our
No,
one.
Well,
my
it's not even
minority
that.
friend.
It's not even that. I just feel like you are more, maybe more on that side, like of like ACAB or something like that. Not necessarily that, but you're more like tear the system down in some sense. So
Yeah,
I'm
like,
curious,
I mean, like I was saying earlier, I feel like it's impractical to be a ACAB person, but I can't come to their defense at the same time. Shit.
Yeah, that's
whole,
a great word.
I had a whole point here that I was gonna make.
well, I guess I just don't
Um,
want to assume we're all, like on the same thing, because I'm sure
No, I
they
mean,
all
like
have
I feel like
thoughts,
there's
but-
varying degrees, and we're kind of on different places with a lot of different things. Like, well, no one's stuck completely in one single position on the scale, I suppose. But yeah, I feel.
I've said enough. Sorry.
No,
I know. I keep having. stuff in my
I was
mind,
just
but-
gonna say that it's exactly right. You scalpel again,
Yeah.
not paintbrush. Anyway, go ahead.
And yeah, and with the protests and everything, and I love what Logan's saying. It's not a defund, it's not an abolish. It's we just need to restructure. Like I keep telling everybody, there's a better way to go about this. I personally, I don't know what that is. I wish I could brainstorm. I wish I knew, but there's something better we can do. We just need to come together and figure it out. And then, like I was going to say, as for the protests, I agree that peaceful protests are great, but how far are, and I'm not into the hyper violence of other protests, but it's hard for me to say that a completely peaceful protest will get us anywhere.
Right. I get that. One thing I've heard is that fuck. I completely forgot. Oh. Like how can we God, it keeps slipping out of my mind. I'm sorry. It's like right there. It keeps going away. This is bad radio. Keep talking.
No, you're good.
I'll find it.
I
I'll
came
find
on
it.
with such passion and I forgot like 3 words in. So.
I know.
Oh, well, so how can we, okay, so if a police officer has a record of aggression or violence, that needs to be a public record in the same way that like a pedophile or someone is, so that if they leave one force, they're forced to resign or they get fired or quit or whatever, and they just go get a job in a different county, different state or whatever, and they just say, oh, okay, well, yeah, we need more cops. Like, there should be something there where there's more consequence to that. Like, the law should affect them just as much as your everyday person. And that's kind of what I mean about the absolute power thing, where it's like, well, we need people, and we're the ones that decide whether it's good or bad, so we'll get you in, we'll pull some strings. Like,
Yeah.
the fuck, man? That completely defeats the purpose of them being there, like, if they're not going to adhere to it in every way. And
Like, there's the whole
And
thing
why
of
did-
being like, oh, go ahead.
Why does it need to be bullets? Like, whatever happened to a taser or fucking some kind of rubber bullet or some shit? Like, why does it have to go straight to killing? Like, and yeah, there's ban chokeholds, and it needs tighter regulation, man. I don't know why. I'm a pretty big regulation guy. Like, I just think that's the best way things happen. And like, yeah, I don't know. It's too loose. Someone needs to be monitoring them. Who watches the Watchmen type of thing?
Yeah.
You know? It's
Well, it's supposed to be a citizens board, but a lot of
Right.
the times the citizens board, all they do is recommend. They just recommend what they should do in case of like if a police officer has misconduct against them.
Yeah.
The citizens board will be like, we think you should fire them,
yeah.
but the police unions and the police like chief could just be
That's
like,
another the union.
it's fine, whatever.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, this goes higher too. Like, we really need to look at
Defund the police union.
yeah,
we really need to look at
I-
like DAs with a lot of misconduct charges
yeah.
and misconduct cases, I should say.
I mean, just for totally different things. I think our DA has had there's corruption charges and stuff
Yeah.
with our local
I'm
Utah
sure.
DA. But
Everywhere
anyways,
you look, man.
I don't know, man. I don't know. There's so much to say, and there's so much that we don't know.
What if police had shock collars, and if enough people voted for them to get shocked, they would get shocked? Like, it had to be a majority decision, you know?
Well, I was actually watching the HBO show, Watchmen. And it kind of has
Looks
like
cool.
a futuristic-ish police force where like everybody hates the police. I've only watched like one episode, but like everybody hates the police, and so they all like wear masks, so you can't tell their identity and stuff.
Mm.
The police force does.
Okay.
But one of the things is like if they want to use like a bullet, like an actual gun, they have to like phone in permission before they can unlock their gun.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so
There's
I
this-
was like, that's interesting.
yeah.
I don't know if it's a practical case if you're at a shootout with somebody, but how
Right,
often are
yeah.
shootouts happening? So, and
Yeah.
at that case, shouldn't the SWAT be there instead?
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like a restructuring thing. Like, you should have more of like a crisis management area of it, and then your people that just deal with day-to-day crime, or
Like petty theft.
not even all crime either. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like there's that classic shit where you see like highway patrol just hanging out while someone, a mile away has a flat tire or something, and it's like, either go help or call someone or something. Like, what, you're just watching people speed? Like, that's your whole reason for being there. And yeah, I don't know. It's
Real quick to go back to your other point, and especially with how the way I keep phrasing it, and you saying I fall a little more towards the other side. I keep saying that cops should be afraid of us, not exactly the same way that we're afraid of them.
yeah,
More so, and I guess afraid is like a bigger word to use, but they need to realize that there's
Yes.
consequences and like the revolution and the
Right.
backlash that could potentially hit them,
yeah.
even just within the public's eye, whether or not they get the charge or whatever, just knowing people know they're pieces of shit has to be more profound in its effect.
There has
yeah.
to be just repercussions, and there's a lot of the times there's no repercussions, and that's what people are complaining about. If there were
Yeah.
repercussions, a lot of this would still be an issue. I mean, we would still be. I'm positive we would still be talking about
Yeah.
the racism that's on with this country, And again, we can talk about police. We could talk about racism. It's like even that within
Right.
itself is two different issues. But
Yeah.
Well,
regardless.
yeah, that's the difference between the kid getting busted for weed and the guy just walking down the street and getting stopped for no reason. Like,
yeah,
so yeah, I don't like, yeah, exactly. The messaging matters. Like, that should be the bigger part of the conversation. Like,
there's just again, I'm gonna keep saying it. Scalpel. But I lost my train of thought too. But it was something to do with what you just said, Eloy.
Repercussions.
Yeah, repercussions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
oh, yeah.
A lot of times there's no repercussions,
Yeah.
and if there were, I don't even think fearful needs to be the word.
That's why,
we
yeah, I
don't
know
need to be
that's-
fearful of them. They don't need to be fearful of us. They just need to respect the power
Mhm.
that the masses hold against them, and like we kind of respect the power they have over us. Like
Yeah.
they have a gun.
It's like
Yeah.
a
I
mutual
respect.
Yeah.
I respect, and I don't mean respect like you're down on your knee and you're like, hey man, I really respect you. You're my hero. Like not like that, but it's kind of like, okay, I understand the power you have, and I'm going to approach you that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see the police as a scary force,
Right.
and they don't see the people as much of anything other than
Yeah.
cow to be herded.
Right.
So
And that's
that
kind of
power balance needs to shift.
Yeah,
I
and
mean-
that's what they were doing by going kind of hog wild, you know.
Yeah.
So it does have a
But
positive
did they?
impact, maybe. I don't know.
Because the rubber bullets and shit still came flying.
Yeah,
And so then that's where I get back with the violence. Is it's like, what ultimately did you do other than hurt yourself and your own cause? I mean, we can say, the peaceful protests, I understand that it doesn't seem like they do a lot, and they don't do a lot unless people care, and people don't care unless
Yeah.
they have the option to get pissed
right.
and destroy shit. And so, and I don't even necessarily think that it was a large majority of people that were doing like the destruction
No.
shit. But that has an effect on the people that would be there otherwise because they care.
Yeah, it definitely kind of repelled me from wanting to show up because it's like, what the hell's going to happen? I don't want to be a part of that end of it. Like, I'd want to be a part of the message, but not
Yeah,
the disastrous side of it. Like,
I guess to me, in my mind, I always opt for the option, like the power behind symbolism and meaning, more than just flat out force and brute,
Yeah.
like power. Like I saw a picture. I don't know necessarily if I've never been to the SLCPD headquarters or whatever, but apparently there's like two hands out held like this, for those listening, one on top of the other,
Yeah.
kind of like outstretched, like we're here to help. And somebody went there and they put like red paint all over it to signify you have blood on your hands. And I
Yeah.
thought that was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's,
whatever happened to that side of it, Like,
Yeah.
like with Donald Trump, when he was being elected, there was like all of these big structures people would wave up in the air, and it was like loud but not violent. There was
Yeah.
the visual side of it. Where's the art, man? Let's get the art back.
I mean,
in.
maybe that's just, again, all people are different. That works more for me. People laying in
too.
Colorado, people laying on their stomachs
Yeah,
just
that
for
was
8 minutes of
very
silence.
powerful,
That's
yeah.
fucking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it.
Yeah,
But when I think about people breaking windows and spraying ACAB, I just get pissed.
yeah.
So I don't know.
I mean, you see those old pictures and video from like the flower power days, like the 60s, 70s or whatever. People like standing in front of a tank with the flower in their hand and stuff. It's pretty powerful because it shows you, I don't know, that's like, even there's that video. I don't even know what the exact like thing was, but there's a tank in the street and it keeps trying to go around the person and they just
Ho Chi Minh Square.
yeah,
Yeah.
they just keep
China.
getting directly in front of it. Like,
It's powerful, man.
it is.
Those are the things that get remembered in history as meaningful. I mean, you can argue that Ho Chi Minh Square, I don't know the
I
Chinese
don't know the
history very
story
much,
of it.
so I guess I should actually shut up. Right now. But I was going to say, you can argue nothing happened. They're still a communist country. But I actually have no idea what happened. I just know that's Ho Chi Minh Square, and I know the video you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know the ins and outs of it, but
See, and it would be more powerful if that was a swarm of people because it's like the most visual way to represent that, you know. Well, and so it's just the one person because it's like one is the war machine, and then it's like who actually is affected by that, you know.
Yeah.
And if you had a large crowd of people in that same exact video, that would speak even louder because it's like one versus many, you know. And that's the thing that we're trying to flip around because right now people on an individual level feel like they're one versus the many of authority. And so that's what we got to flip around. But when that horde of people starts destroying the machine, they're just going to say, okay, bring 3 more in, bring 5 more in. And you would hope more people show up, but I don't know. Like, that's where it gets scary because it's like you have to make a decision as a person if you want to put your whole life on the line for this bigger cause, you know. And the people that it truly affects in this particular case, I'm not convinced even they want to do that. They just want to have a normal life and not have this be an issue, you know. And that's why it is kind of good that it's all types of people protesting. But I think, like the thing with all the people like laying on their stomachs and all that, it sucks out the identity of it and it becomes the actual message. Like if everyone showed up in the same mask or the same thing and it became a symbol instead of just a bunch of random people going crazy like with signs. I don't know. That just needs to be unified and tightened up
and that's the hardest thing to do in a crowd is to unify a crowd. It's
Right.
damn hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
But if you can do it, it's powerful. And I guess that's the spectrum I'm kind of on. Is like in my mind, it's just my mind. I'm not, but I feel like burning buildings and stuff is a low. It's lowbrow protest, so to speak. Whereas highbrow protest is very much like we're going to lay on our stomachs. We're going to have a symbol. We're going to say, I mean,
this is bigger than us. Like it.
Yeah. And I don't know, you know, and I always strive to go more for the symbolism. I think it has more impact than anything else, but what do I know?
Yeah.
I'm not at these protests.
But I don't know. Would it be talked about as much if the only thing that happened was the blood on the hands? Like, it would just go around on Facebook for a day and you'd be like, yeah, man.
But then the question
cool.
is, does it need to go viral? Because policing is very much a community-based problem. It's a community by community problem. And so if in Colorado, laying on your stomach brings a lot of attention to it, and this is abstract because you can't talk about laying on the stomach without talking about the looting and stuff. So, because it all happened at the same time. But imagining just that a bunch of people in Colorado went and they did that. They laid on their stomachs. All that would ultimately matter, I think, is if Colorado paid attention to it in a large majority, and then they changed, and then the rest of the country sees the positive change happening in Colorado, and then that blooms outward like that. So,
well, if more people did that exact thing in their state or whatever, and it became this broad message, you know, like,
And so, again, that's an abstract thing right now because it's kind of hard to like just say that's what should happen.
Right.
That time's come and gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, especially when it comes to positions of power, like in Colorado, if just anybody in their government is actually willing to look at that symbolism and see it for what it is and not just write it off as like people are protesting, they didn't do anything, they just laid on their stomachs like nothing crazy happened. I'm not saying it doesn't send a message, it's just,
but it doesn't instill fear.
I'm not even saying it needs to be like
maybe it should.
Fear.
I don't know.
But I don't know. I feel like with that, you really have to hope you have the right people on the receiving end.
But how do you get the right people there?
you know, who
Set
By
'em up.
voting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. I don't think you can ever find out this number, but I genuinely question how many people out there protesting or voting.
Right.
And it seems dumb, and I believe me, in Utah, of all places, I understand the feeling that your vote does not matter. But I'm gonna say, it does. It does, because if nothing else, these protests should have told people that, hey, there's a lot more of us than there are of them.
Right.
And if you just go out, take a few minutes of your day, and again, we can argue because, you know, black communities have to wait in hours because gerrymandering and shit, and you know, like voting suppression, all this bullshit. Anyways, but beyond all that, if everybody just voted and, you know, paid attention more, I think that kind of symbolism would have a lot more effect. And so, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm asking for a two-pronged approach here to change. And
I mean,
what's the fastest way to change? Maybe it is violence. And maybe I'm wrong in that way.
There's just a lot of, this is so multifaceted. There's so many things that go into what we need to do to get that change. And yeah, violence is the easier way to get noticed, because if you do something like that, it sends a message. It is symbolic, but it could be easy to write off. But then, yeah, on the other side, you do something violent, then they're just going to get pissed off and send in the troops, really. But you may...
Meanwhile, you leave the laws in place and don't take any action to change them, like by voting and everything. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just looking at, like, that is me just being like, looking at this faceless governmental entity and looking at the ways they could perceive it.
Yeah.
So yeah, your point, that really is such a big factor.
And again, all protests are not the same, and what violent tactic is good for one might not be for another.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where another roadblock of mine is, as far as violent protests in the face of police brutality, is that it's hard to, you know, justify your side when you're using tactics that are used against you. And I don't know. Again, we've gone over this a lot, so I feel like I'm just retreading my
we're
position.
going around in circles. It's like I was saying earlier, really just kind of lay this more to rest, I suppose. Just that's where I see it, and I understand other sides, and I'm not saying it needs to be so far like left into the hyper violence or so far right into completely peaceful. Because like I said earlier, I just genuinely don't know the right way.
And even me, I am lumping in some degree. I'm out here saying, you know, you need to look at everything with a scalpel, and and I think I'm still having a hard time separating away the violent actors and the peaceful protesters. I think I'm still in the process of separating all that out and compartmentalizing all of those different factions within the group. So that's on me, and but because I think ultimately it's all for the betterment of humanity, and I think 5 years from now, even if the bad actors, the violent actors or whatever, are still talked about, I hope that the sustained passion for change and all the peaceful protests that have been happening over the last week continue, and that enacts real change. And maybe in 5 years we'll look back on this and say, hey, that the violence was warranted. And, you know, maybe I'll be completely wrong, and there will be deep studies into the group, and it was actually, you know, all for the up and up, and every single person in that crowd believed it, and there weren't just opportunists. Who knows? I don't know, but who knows what the fuck I'm saying anymore.
Did you get a vote by mail thing recently?
I think so.
What did it say? Were you able to vote?
It's for the Utah primary of because I'm an unaffiliated voter, and they basically said if you're unaffiliated, you need to decide.
Yeah.
They basically said, hey man, if you want to vote in the primary, you gotta choose. So
Well, that's what I was wondering because it was saying that I wouldn't be able to participate because I was registered as Democrat.
Well, you
I don't
can. It's
understand
just
that.
in Utah, there's not a lot. You'll basically get like two things you're voting for rather than a whole bunch because you're not
Yeah, that's what
Republican.
it was. Okay.
So
What is that about?
it's
I
the
know I don't
primary
understand
system.
it. Yeah.
I don't know. It's the party choosing what candidate is going to run for them in the general. But because
Oh,
Utah,
so
is
it's just within.
Real quick,
Okay.
while we're discussing this, I got a message, a
Still
text
annoying.
message today, saying that I never agreed to this, but apparently I agreed to receive messages from Huntsman for governor,
Oh boy.
and I got like 12 messages saying Republican primary for governor is June 30th, yada yada. John Huntsman here, and I'm like,
Oh,
when the
that's
fuck
him.
did this?
He texted you.
he has COVID.
They're
He's
like, "Listen,
he has a lot of
guys."
time in the hospital.
Yeah.
We got some stuff we need to discuss before you come.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, can I call? Like, I'd prefer to talk over the phone. Just call John Huntsman.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Is this really John Huntsman? I need you to send me a picture of you with the duck face.
Yeah.
Hold up the
Newspaper.
peace sign to
Yeah.
With Eloy written on a sign in front, so you know it's real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ask me anything.
That was just kind of annoying, and it was kind
Yeah.
of tangential,
Yeah, it was-
tangentially related.
Yeah, exactly.
Play it again.
I'll have to pull it up, but yeah, I mean, I don't think we came up with any answers. I think it was a good discussion.
Fund bicycle cops. Take away their guns.
Yeah.
Fun bicycle.
Give them a little fucking ticket and say, hey, here's what you did. Show up to the courthouse in 30 days or whatever. And
Fund horse police.
We'll talk about it then. Yeah, horse police.
Just the horses. Fund them.
Just the horses, yeah.
Yeah. Gold-plated shoes and shit.
I like
everything better.
the getting it approved to like shoot or whatever, or having some kind of designation of
The
like-
horse.
Yeah, the horses.
Getting it approved. The horse can shoot.
Yeah, the horses. The horses have free reign.
That's what
yeah.
we need.
They
We
can
need-
do whatever they want. They're very
Arm
rational.
the horse.
Yeah.
Arm the horses.
Exactly.
Well, have you guys seen RoboCop? The whole
I know,
idea.
I'm about to watch it for the first time probably tomorrow.
Yeah, you should. The original is great, just in general, just as a ridiculous.
I've seen the
80s movie.
remake.
The remake's not bad, but
It's not the worst.
it's not great. But the whole idea is like, well, this is how we're going to regulate it. You know, these computers will be able to assess when is the appropriate time to take action and blah blah blah. And that's the first idea, and then they immediately double down with this like massive robot machine that's like 15 feet tall and has turrets on it and all this, and it's like it just immediately takes a bend, you know, where it's like becomes authoritarian, and I don't know. So you need people there with emotion and stuff for it to. So I don't know. I guess that's some kind of empathy training or some kind of shit. I don't really know, but I do think it's more about restructuring, like you're saying, where you'd have a social worker handle this type of thing, this person handle this type of thing, instead of just broad strokes, like let them decide, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like we had all that shit going on here. I know we really need to wrap this up. But we had that shit going on here where the last tenants in this house had all these issues and cops kept showing up randomly and everything.
Yeah.
Because I guess they would like get a phone call from her number and the only address they had on file was here. And I talked to, it was two young cops, and they were literally like, yeah, we know, it's just, this is the only address and it's just policy, we just got to show up. And like, they weren't, I mean, at first they did kind of pound on the door a little aggressively, but maybe they were just trying to make sure someone would actually come to the door. But
That's that police knock.
yeah, that police knock, you
Yeah.
know. But then they immediately were like, oh, okay, sorry to bug you guys. Like, are you sure she's not here? Like, we just really need to like verify everything and we'll get out of here. And they weren't trying to bust down the door or whatever. So yeah, there's got to be some kind of process where you can suss out the bad guys. And I guess, I don't know though, because it's like, you know, when Starbucks does like their training of how to not be racist and stuff, it's kind of like, did that actually do anything, or was that more to make the company look good? So
Apparently, I mean, I haven't confirmed this for myself, but apparently Starbucks won't allow you to have like Black Lives Matter pins or anything. Like you need to take a unbiased, neutral stance on this. Like you can't. It's ridiculous.
That's weird. Coming from a company that said "Happy Holidays" on their cups. Well, actually, that is a very centrist move, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're gonna say "Merry Christmas" again. No, we're not. We're gonna say whatever the fuck we want because everyone deserves a voice, and the ones that don't have a voice should be brought up to the surface. You know.
Amen.
Happy Halloween. Scary world out there. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
It's fucked.
I feel like this is coming to a close more or less,
Yeah.
and so I feel like in closing, I just kind of want to reiterate on the point we made earlier, where I feel like at least one of the best things we could take from this is just to be more proactive in our day to day and not just be not racist, but anti-racist, like people are saying.
Right.
Just make this a day-to-day thing where you're calling people out. If they need to be called out, and educate people on what they're doing wrong if they're doing something wrong.
And try to meet them where they are. I've learned that with time, you know, like make it a conversation, and because shame doesn't necessarily do it properly, so
Yeah, I get it's
it's
easy
got to
to
be a dialogue.
like shame someone or it's so easy to get angry with someone with a differing opinion
Yeah.
and be combative. But that's kind of where we're falling with the protests. Like it's violence, peaceful discussion. I don't know. I guess that is contradictory to my stance earlier, but
No, I'm. You just made a connection that I didn't realize. That was a light bulb moment for me. Thank you.
wow.
You know, this whole
Flattered.
conversation centers around meeting people halfway or just discussing the issue as where they're at. Yeah, it's whether you're talking about how to protest or you're talking about how to talk to somebody about being racist. Every approach warrants a different. I mean, every situation warrants a different approach, but I don't know.
Take their hand and lead them. What would Jesus do? Think about that, you know? What would he do?
I don't know. Probably die on a cross. I don't know. Die on a hill.
No, he hung out with the least of them, and he said, how you treat the least of them is how you treat me, man. He was out there, you know, hanging with the hookers and saying...
He also said, he who is without sin cast the first stone, let he who is without sin.
Right.
So, you know, everybody hurling those insults, take a look inside.
Yeah.
See what racist things you said in your life.
Yeah.
Wow, Jesus really did come in handy. This episode.
Wow. What a dude.
What a dude, yeah.
Maybe we should... I don't know. We'll talk about that after this. But anyway.
All right, and I don't know. This conversation might need to keep going in some way or another. This is about a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it 2 hours? It seems longer, right? I always get paranoid around the 1 hour mark because we've lost material in the past, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I kind of get nervous every time. So I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
If we started like right at 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah. It's got to be pretty close to that.
Okay.
Yeah. That seems
All right.
about right.
All right. Doesn't matter for you listeners, but it does for me, and I'm elated about it. Okay, everything's great. All right. Thank you guys for listening to episode. I keep saying that, but I lost track. Listen, I just post the episodes, and then I forget what episode it is.
So the current episode.
Thank you for listening to this
week's.
current episode of Vice of Life. This is the kind of podcast that I enjoy. This is one of my favorite episodes because it's timely, it's important, and it's a week in the bag.
There you
as
go.
I say. I don't have a on this day thing, but I think this episode warrants a soft clothing, a nice silky exit.
Yeah.
Velvety.
Yes, to this episode. So
Conclusion.
thank you guys for listening. Remember, Black Lives Matter, and I'm sorry if you don't understand that. You're kind of stupid. Okay,
Yep.
and the meaning behind it. Anyways, Okay.
If
See-
all lives matter, then Black Lives Matter.
See, look at me. I'm being combative, and I'm all saying, preaching peace and positivity here.
Yeah.
All right. Educate yourselves, and we'll see you guys next week for next episode of Vice of Life. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
The beautiful people listening to this episode. Thank you so much for doing so. If you liked what you just heard, you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Vice of Life Pod. You can send us personal email at viceoflifepodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to the episodes on YouTube at Vice of Life. And if you really, really, really liked it, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Vice of Life. Give us some money. We would love it. Leave us a review and subscribe wherever you're listening. Thank you.